Welcome everybody. And we are going to start off with karakia to open the meeting. Taka te hau.
Tina, Uye,
Taranaki. Thank you very much. Okay, we have no apologies. No apologies, that's Charlotte online. So we'll get underway with the confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting, 1st of April. Can I have a mover, please? Seconder. Donald?
No.
No.
Correction, Madam, Mr. Chairman.
A correction, okay.
Item 7. Bit of much cut and paste going on, I think.
Yep.
Item 7.
Yep.
make a note.
Yep.
Yeah, what about it?
Yeah.
Item 7.
What's the problem?
What's the problem with it?
You read it.
Receive the minutes of the transport meeting.
Got transport.
Regional council, solid waste and transport.
All right, we can fix that. Would you like to move it?
With that amendment?
With that amendment.
I will.
I mean, second it. Sorry, I've already got to move it. Thank you very much. All those in favour, please. All right. Yes. There are none. Moving on, we are up to the receipt of the Operations Regulatory Committee meeting minutes. Susan?
Nothing, they're true and correct record. I move
Correct.
that they be accepted.
Nothing to add. Thank you. We have a mover, seconder.
Yeah.
Thanks, Alan. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? There are none. Policy and planning, 18th of March. Is that not a while ago?
29th of April.
Yes.
Post.
Sorry, I'm just reading my notes.
Holidays.
20. That's what I thought too. April. Bonita.
Yeah, happy to move those minutes to true and correct, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Seconder, please.
Yes.
And Susan. All those in favour, please aye. Anything to discuss there?
Yeah, the item 6, the dairy effluent management. I'm troubled by the way that's worded. It says at the top there that the recommendations was resolved, and it's the motion was not put. So it wasn't actually resolved because it wasn't put. It might have been moved, but it wasn't resolved.
Yeah, that should be moved rather than resolved.
Yeah.
That top one.
So Mr. Senior.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Because you come through with the resolution later.
Okay, with that taken into account, we still have a mover and a seconder, I take it. All those in favour, please aye.
Aye.
Against? None.
And Mr. Chair, just about that too, I gather this will turn up again at the next Policy and Planning Committee to finally tidy this up and get it back on track.
Not finally tidied up, no. As we explained, this is a process we're working our way through to introduce key parts of the freshwater planning process to the committee and get guidance on the process as we go through it. So, and there will be a number of stages to that will not only deal with these policies as individual matters, but also you will see the complete draft plan as a whole package, and then reconsider all of the policies within that broader context of the whole document. And then it will go through extensive community consultation as required under Schedule 1 of the RMA, which will take at least 6 months. And then it will go off to a freshwater hearings panel, which will take a period of time to again go through a whole consultation process and the matters we do. So no, it's not finalised. These decisions are not being finalised now. It's guidance on a journey.
Yes, but what I meant was the resolution option 1 or 2 on the sort of thing.
For the effluent management, direct to water discharge.
Well, there's a further report back coming, yes, on the options and how that's
The next
addressed,
Policy and Planning
but that will not be the final resolution of that particular issue.
No, I just mean that
Yeah.
that this particular matter, which really was falling between the two options, will come back to us
Yes,
again.
yes. No. So the team have doing some further work at the moment. We've had a discussion about them, and that work is being developed, and we'll come back with some suggestions on the way forward.
Thank you.
I think it's important to get to some sort of conclusion because people obviously are listening out there and knowing.
Yeah, but let's also be clear, this is not going to take effect for potentially several years, depending on appeals and all the rest of it. It's like a planning process.
Those ones will, whether you need to apply for a new resource consent and have it direct to water or a discharge to water, or you have to go to land, no water discharges. So there's no consents rolling forward after their expiry.
Chair, we're
That
just
was what that
discussing the minutes, we're not relitigating the business.
Yeah.
No,
Feeling we're getting
that's
to
right. But
relitigation.
we're talking. Steve's talking about something different to what we're talking about. Yeah.
Maybe have a chat to Steve.
Yeah.
Donna's got
Yeah.
her hand up.
Hey, this might be going back, but can we just put that it's treated animal effluent? Because people think that
Yes.
it's going straight into the river and it's not. It is actually treated beforehand. I just heard something on the radio and I think there needs to be clarification of that.
Yeah, council's not able to amend the minutes. It can reject them and send them back to the committee. It's up to the committee, and these are minutes
Okay,
of
we'll
what
make sure we do
the
that from now on,
committee
'cause it's quite a
moved and seconded at the
difference.
time. That's an issue that should have been raised in the policy and planning committee meeting. You can't minutes.
Sorry,
need to be-
okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
So just moving forward. Yes. Anyone else want to talk about those minutes?
Just that in response
Yes.
to Donna, Tom just pointed out that under heading 6, it does say on treated animal effluent discharges.
Yeah.
The second
In the
one.
minutes.
I didn't think the first
But
one.
the media doesn't seem to have
6.1.
the media doesn't seem to have picked that fine point out.
Okay. Moving on to the next item, we have the Executive Audit and Risk Committee. It's Tom.
All good, nothing to report.
Nothing to report, all good. Happy to move?
Yes, yes.
March, seconder. Thanks, Susan. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Very nice. We are receiving item number 8, the Taranaki Passenger Transport Joint Committee from 17 April. Alan?
No, it was good to
Any
finally
comments?
get a committee underway, and I think it was off to a good start. Having that joint, I think I can see some real positives for the transport sector, and New Plymouth especially will benefit from it, having that input from the local council, etc. So no, good meeting.
Thank you. You happy to move that we
I'm happy
receive
to
the
move.
minutes? Thank you very much. Second up.
Good.
Susan again?
Through you,
Looking at
Chair,
me. Yes.
should we be receiving the unconfirmed minutes of the Taranaki Passenger Transport Joint Committee as opposed to the minutes?
All the others are unconfirmed anyway, but we're approving. We're not approving them, we're only accepting them.
The minutes are unconfirmed. Is that what you're saying?
Hmm.
We make them receiving the unconfirmed minutes
I'm
rather
happy
than
to
confirmed?
make change.
We can make that change for you.
Just stand back a bit though. All of these minutes are unconfirmed
Yes, yes,
because they can only be confirmed by the committee.
yes.
And so all of the other committee meetings you've received are unconfirmed minutes. They will not be confirmed until the next meeting round in 4 weeks' time. So you are always doing that, particularly if you want to adopt the particular actions and confirm those that are basically coming to you as recommendations. I'm sure you don't want to wait 10 weeks to be able to confirm an action recommended to you by a committee.
Correct.
No,
Just
I think it works.
Yeah.
talk about semantics here a little bit, I think. All good? That's just as what it says. You're right, Alan. It does say the minutes and
Does
all
say
the
the
others
minutes and
said unconfirmed.
Perception is that they're confirmed and they're not.
Correct. It's an easy change. You? All righty. So, moving on to the meat of today's meeting. Beginning with item number 9, Mike, setting the administrative charges.
Chair, this is, you've got in front of you the next 3 items, which are all interlinked, interwoven, and they're all around the adoption and the procedures that we need to do around the adoption of our annual plan and setting of rates. The first of these items is the setting of administrative charges pursuant to section 36. Now you recall back in December and February when you were considering your approach to the annual plan, you made the decision that as the annual plan was very closely aligned with year 2 of the LTP, that we were to undertake no further public consultation and engagement processes. We noted that the one consultation process we needed to complete was for our RMA charges, administrative charges under section 36. So we've completed that process. As we've experienced in previous years, the processes we've got of engaging with the community through our LTP and through the development of the compliance monitoring programs means we receive little or no interest from the wider community on this consultation process. And this was the process again. We've received no submissions or feedback on the schedule of charges. Therefore, we're recommending to the council that they be adopted and included in the annual plan. Happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Any questions for Mike? Anybody? Mike?
Really dumb question, Chair. Just on page 39, I just read it actually, or this part. Fixed minimum charges for the preparation of change of policy statement. Request for preparation of a change is $77,000. Really?
And that's a, Chair, that is a fraction of the actual cost we would incur in undertaking a review of the regional plan or policy statement. That would run into hundreds, if not millions of dollars. So basically, what we're saying here, and we've had these charges there for a long, long time, is we're saying to the community that if you want to go down that process, you have some skin in the game, and you don't just do this off a whim.
Has anyone ever done it?
That's a fair bit of skin in the game.
No.
Thank you.
Not thinking of doing that, Mike?
Sorry? I don't think so. Yeah.
Anything else? Anyone else? Any more questions? Do I have a mover, please? Thanks, Neil.
Yes.
Seconder. Thank you, Donna. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, 10, Mike. Annual plan and distance.
Chair, so this is the culmination of those processes we started and progressed in December and February of this year. And what we have in front of us now is our annual plan, which sets our work program and what we're looking to achieve in our budgets for 25-26. As we've noted all along here, we put a lot of effort and a lot of work with the community on our long-term plan, and in particular the issues that we've highlighted on paragraph 10 there, which were the key consultation issues that we worked with our communities on to get their views on. So where we found ourselves was that the year 2 of the LTP was remarkably similar to what we were proposing in the annual plan, and so given that there's no new issues, there's nothing to particularly brand new to communicate with the community and engage with, you made the decision in February to just move straight to adopting the annual plan. So you've got in front of you the annual plan. It is very consistent with the decisions you made around the LTP. In terms of the finances, I've gone through the various financial implications there. We were able to deliver a total rates increase marginally under the proposal in the LTP. So that was 13%, and we've got that down to 12.9. That is still us using the dividend equalisation reserve in the early years of the long-term plan and repaying that, for want of a better word, that internal borrowing from that reserve in the later years of the LTP. So that carries on there. So you've got recommendations adopting the annual plan, noting that unbalanced budget and use of the dividend equalisation reserve, and noting that and our comms and graphics teams are just doing the final dotting I's and crossing T's, so there's some minor editorial changes. And indeed, there was an update went out yesterday with the latest version of those changes. Chair, I'm very happy to answer any questions or go into any further depth if councillors wish me to do so.
Yeah, Chair, I think this one's for Dan, if I may. Under the predator-free and through the submission process last year, there was quite a lot of submissions under that trapping of feral cats and what we were doing for feral cats. My question is there anything in here that allows us to continue that process, and do we need to somewhere put some financial backing in towards gaining a directive where we can actually start targeting the feral cats that have out in that hinterland that have been so troublesome for those trappers, and it echoed here in many of the trappers that were here at that time. So I'm just wondering whereabouts are we up to, and is there provision in this plan or for financial a capability of introducing the feral cat program?
Yeah, through you, Chair. The short answer to that is no, there's no provision in there for increasing trapping of feral cats. What I can tell you though is, as you're aware, we're going through a review of our regional pest management plan at the moment. And one of the things that's been posed, I guess, through that process is putting some rules around feral cats. Obviously, that's a process that needs to go through council and public consultation, et cetera, in terms of what we might do in that space. The first step is, and a lot of this is being talked about, through the media at the moment. There's a lot more of a social license, if you like, to control feral cats. People are getting a much better understanding of the difference between a feral cat and a domestic cat. Is around the microchipping and desexing, etc., which may be something through that process we might require district councils to do potentially, as they are usually the ones responsible for domestic animals, animal control, etc., etc. That means that we're much more able to control cats in the knowledge that we're not catching someone's domestic cat, because there's tools that we can use to ensure that we're not catching ones that have been microchipped, etc. And obviously there's a big issue with people dumping cats, which is causing a big increase in feral cats in the environment, and clearly desexing cats is going to help with that issue as well. So that's a process that we need to go through, and as a result of that might make changes, might result in changes in the next LTP perhaps, if that's what happens. What I can also tell you is that in certain areas where we're a long way from dwellings and residential areas, there is some trapping of feral cats already happening in K&Es and other high value areas where it's appropriate.
Yeah, okay. So it's on the radar, that's the main thing. I'm going to let it fall off and make sure we've got the funding to do it. But it's engaging with the councils that we need to do probably fairly quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Through your chair, it is on the radar. There is, like I say, some legislative changes that probably need to be made, policy changes, etc., before we start considering any sort of financial implications.
Okay, thank you for that update, Glenn.
Anyone else? Right.
Through you, Chair, just an observation, but I'd be interested in what the other councillors feel that, the rate increase of 12.9% is a big one. And particularly in the environment we're currently living in, cost increases, etc. We should have probably raised this back in November, but could we possibly get that down to single figures rather than 12.9, or is it too late?
I think it's too late. And I think for myself, one of the things I would like to see us publicise when, assuming that we approve this, is what does a 12.9% increase in fact look like? Because my understanding is it's in fact modest per household, is that right? So it would be possible for you, Mike, to identify a low value household, a middle value household and a high value household and put a dollar figure on each, wouldn't it? And what would you estimate those figures would be?
Through you, Chair, indeed, if you look on page...
It was there somewhere.
Have I missed it?
It's in the,
In the
funding
fine print.
impact statement. We've got the...
Pardon?
It's in the back.
I'm frantically scrolling through the annual plan. We've got, we've got the schedule of what those rates are for a variety of properties. It'd be very easy to then say, well, this is last year's and this is this year's. So
If we could extrapolate that and put it
conversation.
front and centre, because 12.9% or whatever it is sounds horrendous, but when you look at it against the actual rate take of the district councils, it's negligible.
I understand what you're saying, and in a sense, it's almost a little bit too late. I noticed out in the paper today, or it's on stuff anyway, and it's talking about, so they've just taken it straight out of this, and that would be probably the big news when it comes to our rate increases.
But we can claw it back by putting a household figure on it to make it.
I think it would be better to talk about the why.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to do both, really.
But also, the rural sector too, I mean, that's quite an increase when you're farming. I mean, Mike Davey in Struggle Street in Inglewood, it's probably $3 or $4. But in a dairy situation or a dry stock situation, it's quite large.
Oh, absolutely, and you might want to look at commercial properties as well. I mean,
Yeah, that's right.
It definitely adds up. But just further to your first question, Mike, I think, I mean, this is no great deviation from the long-term plan, is it, Mike? This is year 2 of the long-term plan, and we knew this was coming, and I think it was saying it's going to be 13.2 or something. So it is, you know, that was the time, probably back when we did the long-term plan, and I'm not sure what we're looking at for next year in the long-term plan. My question to you, Mike, was, is that looking like that's going to deviate year 3 of the long-term plan and port dividends as well? How are they looking? Because I read that Methanex is once again selling its gas back to the gas suppliers. What does that mean for dividends?
Chair, there's a series of questions there. I'll work my way through them and hopefully I won't miss one. First things first, so page, we did it, in answer to Councillor Hughes' question, page 61 of the annual plan, which is page 121 of the agenda, has got those examples. So
Thank you.
and when you compare them back to last year, you will be in the tens of dollars, rather than...
But I'm sure you can see the value in publicising that, to put some context around the 12.9%. It is not some crippling amount. And while I get the need to make it clear what it costs the farmers, most of the ratepayers are household owners. So that will be the most relevant information for them. Yes.
So we'll add something in, particularly in the forward, to note that quantum, give it some
context,
scale.
Thank you.
Right, port dividends. So we, as I've noted in my paper there, the port company continues to operate in a highly competitive environment. Decisions are being made, you know, all the time. We reported this morning's paper, Methanex is making their decisions. So when we updated this a few weeks ago with the management of the port, they were saying they were feeling optimistic about the $8 million, but they operate in a highly, they can't guarantee anything. So we've put in there, you recall when we talked about this last year, we put in a strategy to take us through to the next LTP. And the strategy was, if there are shortfalls in dividends, we will use the dividend equalisation reserve to take us through until the LTP. When we've got certainty, hopefully by the time the 2737 LTP comes about around, we've got a fraction more certainty on that. So that, whilst we've allowed for $8 million in this annual plan, if there's a lesser figure that actually arrives, we'll continue to use the dividend equalisation reserve as it's there. The challenge for us will be, if this is an ongoing trend, what we do and the impact on rates, if and the 27 to 37 LTP. So that's a challenge for us coming forward.
And that's going to result, should that come to bear, that's going to result in quite a substantial rate increase or cuts in services.
Depending on what else is going on.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a serious look.
Correct.
Yeah. The other question, Mr. Chair, which perhaps Mike would like to say, is the indication of what the figures might be for other regional councils. Last time, of course, there was some tremendous 30% and even one that was 80% at one stage.
Perhaps let's just let Mike finish first, because you're still going to get to...
We'll add that question to the bottom of the list.
Yeah, you're still going to get to next year as well, based on the long term.
Yeah. So, in your LTP, the 3 years that are covered by the LTP, you had 16.9, 13.2, 10.3 for next year's 26-27 annual plan. And that was on the basis of you've got a shortfall in your budgets, you are using the dividend equalisation in the early years of your financial strategy and repaying it in the back end. So you for want of an expression, you're kicking the can down the road a little bit. We had conversations, particularly at the December ordinary meeting when we first broached what was your approach to that, and we had that conversation about do you want to, what changes, if any, do you wish to make? And in particular, if you're going to reduce that rates increase down to a different level, what services do you wish to start cutting? And you made the decision at that point that you were comfortable to stay with the year 2 of the LTP. You will have the same opportunity later this year when we start thinking about the 26-27 annual plan. If you wish to give us instruction on which services you wish to cut so we can achieve a lower rates increase, we can then go away and do that work. So October, November, December this year, when we're talking about annual plan, that's the time. Being brutally honest, at this point, you know, we're adopting, we're a month out from our statutory deadline. We don't have a lot of wriggle room to make changes.
Too late, she cried.
Yeah. Okay. And to Neil's question, relative rating.
So, so the instruction that the council gave at that December meeting was look for where savings can be made. Look for the changes in programs. So when we came back to you in the February meeting, we said, look, we think we can deliver a slightly reduced rates increase, which is 12.9, based on what we're hearing and delay in the resource management space and delaying some of the work, so changing the timing of some of our programs of work. So that's how we were able to move from 13.2 down to the 12.9. Every single regional council in the country is challenging itself as to how it can manage those rates increases that, as you quite correctly noted, Councillor Walker, were quite significant across the country. They're all working their way through their challenges. I haven't seen, we're all pretty much in the same process. I haven't seen the latest figures, but I imagine they'll be looking for savings either through cutting services or delaying programs of work. But I haven't got the specifics to answer that question.
The problem too, which is coming, is certain political parties are already talking about rates caps. So let's just say I'm not saying that would happen, but certainly that's been a discussion with Local Government New Zealand and certain political groups and so forth. So it may be that there will be something like that coming. I hope not, but just the same, we may have to face up to something like that.
It's speculative though, isn't it? I mean, until we're confronted with it, what's the point of worrying about it?
I think that's just
Well, we are
populist
worrying
stuff.
about it in as much as Local Government New Zealand is actually making representations and taking the matter up to try to block it, but there are quite serious proposals, and it would be good if we could turn them away at the pass rather than actually having to face them.
Steve, there is pushback against that sort of.
There is
Stop us there.
absolutely work going on, and I'm confident this council is well represented in that process.
Right.
Just a final question, Chair, if I may. The annual plan, the glossy document we have here, are they going to produce some of those so that they go out to the community or not? The libraries or? It's quite well done, actually.
What is the plan like?
Chair, historically, we used to run off hundreds and hundreds of copies and distribute them to all and sundry. As the world has become more digital, we've done less of that. But we certainly, they're readily available on our website at any stage. But we do produce a handful of hard copies for appropriate venues.
And where do you distribute them, like just the libraries?
I can't answer that off the top of my head.
Just thinking of the...
all I would note is we used to have a huge long list of
I know.
people, and it's a much smaller list of who we
Cost
distribute.
savings.
And we used to have 3 or 4 pages in the midweek as well, but of course the midweek's gone. Do we print it anywhere in the Daily News or anything else, or is it really just digital now?
Chair, we do that when we do the public consultation and engagement process. So this is the proposals we've got each year, and this is how to get involved and make your submissions and all the rest of it. Of course, we haven't done that this time around, so we haven't done that. We do that with the annual report, and we'll be doing that in September. The 2 or 3 pages and the Daily News now rather than midweeker.
I'm just thinking more of the Blue Rinse Brigade, the elderly people that don't have computers.
You mean you?
No, yeah, me. Thanks. You know, because...
Send one to Mike. We'll leave that sort of operational stuff. We'll leave that there. So there is a whole bunch of recommendations there, where pages 52 to 53, A through to F. I'll move them. Seconded by Neil. All those in favour, please
Aye.
Against? There are none. Done. So, setting of rates, Mike.
Chair, so this, having adopted your annual plan, you've now got the last administrative step, which is setting the rates which deliver on the annual plan which you've just adopted. So what you've got in there is the normal range of general rates, uniform annual general charges, and targeted rates. We've changed the name of the Yarrow Stadium rate to Regional Sports and Recreation Facilities rate, given the name changes and likely future name changes of Stadium Taranaki. We've got the normal arrangements where the 3 district councils collect the rates on our behalf and administer the remissions and postponement policies. All very administrative, Chair. I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Your move. Thank you, Tom. Second up. Thanks, Susan. So we have the recommendations going.
Donna's got something.
I just wondered
sorry,
why
Donna.
Stratford was slightly higher than the other 2.
In what in?
Page 154, the burden.
Cents in the dollar of capital value for every rating unit.
Oh, Chair. So, okay, now you're getting into rating law, which is good fun. So the 3 district councils revalue on a 3-yearly cycle. So one council's getting revalued 1 year, next year the next one, and the third year the third one. So at any one point, the valuations of the region are either current, 1 year old, or 2 years old. So quotable value does an equalisation process to take the anomalies out of the those different timings of valuations. So what we've done is in that first table there, we then allocate the general rate across those equalised values of the region. Of course, that's a notional equalisation. When we then set a rate in the dollar to collect those rates, we have to use the actual valuations. So we go back to what is the rate in the dollar to actually collect that amount that's due from that constituency. So those three sets of figures vary year on year. And in fact, there's a table in the annual plan which has those variances over many years, which just reflects the change in timing of valuations across the region.
Just do we allocate them out on a percentage between each district council, is it? Or?
So that table there on page 154, the first column there, ECV, is the equalised capital value. So that is the work that quotable value says takes the variations in valuations over time and across the region and equalises them. That comes up with those percentages, and then we say, right, 8% of that needs to be collected from Stratford constituency, which equates to $1.1 million worth of rates. We then take that $1.1 million and allocate it by the actual capital value in the Stratford district.
And that gets you 0.03.
So we're collecting the right amount,
Yep.
but the cents in the dollar will never be the same.
Right. Yep.
All good? Okay. So we have a mover and a second, recommendations A through to K. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Against? There are none. Item number 12, 161, Nicole. Triennial election.
Thank you, through you, Chair. The report in front of you is actually from the electoral officer, Dawasowski. Essentially, it kind of just lays out the timetable for the upcoming election. The important part, I guess, that we need a decision from council on is the candidate order. So we've got three options there: alphabetical, pseudo-random, and random. Take the majority of the paper itself as read, but happy to answer any questions if you've got them.
Can I move or propose that section B be random? We choose random.
Why? Yes, you may. Do you want to explain why you...
Because it says that it causes confusion.
To equalise everything out so that it is. I've read all the stuff.
Did you read the report?
Yep.
And it said there's no evidence to suggest.
True.
Okay, thanks for that, Alan.
For you, Chair, I'm happy with alphabetical. I find it less frustrating and at least people can rattle down and come up with and know where their name should be, or if they're looking for a specific, it's easier to find. So I'm more than happy with alphabetical. Just a shame I don't start with an A.
But Ellen,
There's time yet.
I'll second.
Mr. Walker, you should be talking about
Councillor Walker,
so I'm at the other end too.
about
Like
every year,
Councillor-
don't we ask for alphabetical in reverse?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's just as good to be at the bottom because that's where I usually am.
We should be there too.
Through the chair, we've always been
Yeah.
a council that makes it pretty simple for the voters, and that's why we've always stuck with the A to Z.
Yeah.
But
And it's worked for you. I mean,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be sitting in the chair, Councillor Wilkinson, if it didn't work.
we've-
And probably the same as Councillor Walker, and starting at the bottom, working back up.
Either they can
So,
find us or can't find
It's
us.
the poor beggars like me
Somehow.
that's in the middle.
Yeah, I think
C's hardly in the middle.
But anyway, I mean,
He's actually the top.
I'll move that we
I
go
am.
to alphabetical.
Yeah.
Right,
Through
okay,
you,
thank
Chair,
you.
sorry, we've got Councillor Jameson's already moved it and Davies seconded, so
Oh, okay.
Okay, and
Move
we don't,
alphabetical.
Ellen moved it.
Yeah,
Mine probably
we
left.
don't have a seconder for Donald McIntyre's
Yeah.
No,
motion.
Mr. Chair, I don't think it matters. I don't think it really
Rebellion.
matters what you do really in this case. It's only when you have very long lists and things like STV that it starts to really counter for the
Yes.
names Aardvark or Zizzello.
Well, I know we've debated this in a vacuum before, at least there's some evidence this time to suggest that it makes no difference. So we have a mover and a seconder. The recommendations are there on page 161. All those in favour, please aye.
Aye.
Against? There are none. Okay. 13, Nicole, local government election year protocols.
do like a
Behave
good,
yourselves, everybody.
do like a good rule book.
Yeah.
So that through you, Chair. The
Yes.
item in front of you outlines the protocols and expected behaviours for any members that are looking to stand again during the election period. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. It hasn't changed for any of those that are returning again from another term. But essentially it kind of outlines what resources you can and can't use, what you can and can't use them for during the election period, as well as staff. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Steve?
And through the chair, I mean, we've always been pretty sensible about that. Every now and again, someone takes a crack at this, especially with the long-term planning process and et cetera. But I think, you know, overall the councillors fully understand what we need to do and how we need to do it. But, you know, they've got Steve and Matt to ask, anyway, the staff to ask if they're not too sure.
Common sense.
It is a bit of a complicated approach.
Just under elected members' correspondence, Nicole, does that include not using our TRC email addresses for any electioneering as well?
Yes.
Executive? Steve, of you?
I mean, I know the answer, I just want
Well, you should use it for direct current day council purposes. You shouldn't use it to say vote bigger.
Says it in there.
To the list, yeah. So just need to draw a distinction between what's responding to a constituent that's asked you a question, for example, versus campaigning is the difference.
So just secondary to that, because we'll get hit with all these people that want us to put stuff up on their websites and stuff like that.
And what's your opinion on this and that?
Who send to our council email addresses.
So you should shift it, if you intend responding, you should shift it to your private email address rather than use your council email address to respond.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the biggest problem we've had ever, and it wasn't reasonable that it was a problem, was the fact of material published by General Council information about the previous chairman at the time of the election or close enough to it, which created a complaint by an individual candidate back to the Auditor General, if you recall, and the person was made a big deal of it. So
well,
we've just got to be careful with that.
That wasn't us. That was back to the annual report, wasn't it? That we were publishing it and sending it out just weeks before the election.
Yes. Which will happen again this year.
Mike? Yeah.
Chair, absolutely. That was the case. We'd adopted the annual report and we'd published the summary annual report as we're required to do. What we tend to do in an election year, in a normal case of events, councillors are front and centre of those comms, but we tend to we step that back. But Councillor Walker is quite correct. There was a complaint and it was not upheld by the Auditor General's office. So they quite correctly noted that it was normal business of the council that we're required to carry on doing. We weren't putting any councillor, any standing councillor or chair up on a pedestal above others.
I'll move the recommendation on page 175, Chair.
Thank you, Tom. I will second that. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, so moving on into public excluded. I'll move the recommendation to move into public excluded. Thanks, Tom. All those in favour, please say aye.
No.